I never thought I would feel like a stranger in the very house I rebuilt with my own hands. But that morning, standing barefoot on the hardwood floors I installed myself, I watched my own family escort me toward the front door like I was some unwanted guest. It started with a sentence that didn't even sound real at first. Mom said it calmly, almost gently. "Madeline, maybe you should take some time away from the house." The house. Not your house. Not our house. Just, the house. For a moment, I honestly thought she was joking. Then I saw the look on her face. Cold. Steady. Already decided. By the time I understood what was happening, my brother Mark appeared behind me holding a box of my things. He wouldn't look at me. He just kept pushing the box forward like it was some chore he couldn't wait to finish. Then Dad stepped in, arms folded, jaw tight, the same expression he used whenever I asked too many questions as a kid. "Let's not make this difficult," he said. But the truth was, nothing about this felt difficult. It felt deliberate. I stood there in the hallway, staring at their faces, realizing the house I spent 2 years renovating, financing, decorating, and rebuilding, no longer wanted me in it. And worse, the people inside it no longer did either. Before I say what happened next, let me say this clearly to anyone watching: if you've ever poured your whole heart into something only for the people you love to push you out of it, you're not alone. Drop a comment if you've ever had family twist your kindness into weakness, and make sure you subscribe because these stories matter. I wish I could say there was a fight. Or shouting. Or some kind of explanation. But there wasn't. Only silence. My mother stepped aside first, like she was giving someone else room to pass. My father stood a little straighter. And my brother cleared his throat and said, "We need space, Maddie. You're making things complicated." Complicated. The word felt heavier than the box in my hands. I whispered, "This is my house." Dad shook his head. "It's in our name now." And that was the moment everything inside me froze. I remembered the day I handed them the paperwork to, temporarily, put the deed under their names while my credit recovered after my divorce. I trusted them. I believed them when they said they would switch it back as soon as I was stable again. I believed every soft promise and every reassuring smile. But now, I was standing in the center of that trust, watching it crumble right under me. Mom reached for the doorknob. "Please don't make this harder," she whispered. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Her hand shook, but she still opened the door. Cold morning air rushed inside, brushing against my skin like a warning. I held the cardboard box tighter. "You're kicking me out," I said quietly. My dad stepped forward. "Don't be dramatic. You're just leaving for a while." "For how long?" He didn't answer. The quiet stretched into something unbearable. Neighbors walked by outside. A dog barked in the distance. A leaf skittered across the driveway. Every sound seemed louder than the moment I was being erased from my own home. My brother finally said it. "You can't stay here anymore, Maddie." Each word cut deeper. "You don't live here." Something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not violently. Just a small, final break. I stepped outside. Mom closed the door behind me. The click of the lock felt like a lifetime ending. I just stood there for a long moment, staring at the front door of the home I built from the studs up. I put in the cabinets. I painted the walls. I replaced the windows. I poured every dollar I had into making it safe, warm, livable. And they took it from me in a single morning like it meant nothing. The worst part, they didn't even say goodbye. I sat down on the curb with the box beside me. Inside it were pieces of my life they thought were worth returning. A few framed photos. A sweater. A candle I hadn't even burned yet. Not even. The things that mattered. Not even the things I bought for the house. Just, scraps. I stared at the pavement, trying to breathe past the ache in my chest when a shadow fell over me. At first, I thought it was Dad coming to throw out another apology he didn't mean. But when I looked up, it wasn't him. It was a man in a dark suit, holding a folder with my name on it. "Madeline Pierce?" he asked. I wiped my face and nodded. He looked almost relieved. "Good. I've been looking for you." "For me?" "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "I'm your grandfather's lawyer. I've been instructed to deliver something to you. Privately." I blinked. "My grandfather? He passed away last month." "I know," the man said gently. "And he left behind a document. One your parents didn't want you to see." My heart stopped cold. "What document?" I whispered. He handed me the folder. "It's about this house," he said. Then he paused, lowering his voice. "And about who actually owns it." My breath caught as I reached for the folder, my hands trembling hard enough for the papers to shake. Because suddenly, the story I thought I understood was about to change. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I held the folder so tightly that the edges bent under my fingers. My grandfather's lawyer waited quietly, as if he already knew the world around me had tilted. I opened the flap with careful hands, afraid of what I might find inside, afraid of what it might mean, and terrified that this paper would tell a story my parents never wanted me to hear. Inside was a letter. Not typed. Handwritten. In my grandfather's shaky cursive. My breath stilled when I saw the first line. "For my granddaughter, Madeline. The only one who ever stood by me." My chest tightened. I swallowed and kept reading, hearing his voice in every uneven stroke of ink. He wrote about the afternoons I spent with him fixing the porch, how I helped him repaint the back fence, how I never complained when he asked for help even when I was tired from work. He wrote things I didn't even know he noticed. Then the words that made my fingers go numb. "I am leaving you my home, and the land it stands on. No one else is to claim it. I trust you to take care of it the same way you took care of me." My heart dropped. He wasn't talking about the small cabin outside town. He wasn't talking about the property he rented near the lake. He was talking about this house. The one I rebuilt. The one I stood outside with a box of scraps like a stranger. I looked up at the lawyer, barely able to breathe. This house was his. He nodded. "Yes. Your parents never owned it. They were caretakers. He wanted it passed directly to you. But, the deed, your parents transferred it illegally," he said quietly. "Your grandfather informed me of his concerns before he passed. He suspected they would try to take control. That's why he left explicit instructions." My knees felt weak. I sat back down on the curb without meaning to. The lawyer crouched beside me, keeping his voice low so my family wouldn't hear anything through the door. "There's more," he said, pulling another set of documents from the folder. "He filed a change of ownership request shortly before he got sick. The county hasn't processed it yet, but his signature and the notarization are here. This is legally binding." I stared at the papers, at my grandfather's handwriting, at the notary seal shining faintly in the sunlight. My parents had spent years complaining about Grandpa. They said he was difficult, stubborn, and selfish. But he wasn't selfish. He was protecting me while they were plotting behind my back. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why wouldn't they tell me?" The lawyer took a slow breath. "I think you already know the answer." And I did. I knew it too well. Because when I told my family I wanted to rebuild this house, they didn't help. They didn't lift a hammer. They didn't show up with paint or tools or even water when I worked late. They complained. They rolled their eyes. They told me I was wasting my time trying to fix something that should be torn down. But when it was done, when the walls were smooth and the floors gleamed and the house looked like something new and hopeful, suddenly they wanted to take responsibility. Suddenly they wanted control. I handed the letter back, swallowing hard. "What do I do now?" The lawyer gave me a small, steady look. I will be filing for immediate enforcement of the transfer. Once the documents clear, this house becomes yours. Not theirs. For a moment, the world around me blurred. The sound of a car driving by. The wind is brushing the leaves. The faint beep of someone locking their vehicle. Ordinary sounds on a day that felt anything but ordinary. My parents are going to lose it, I whispered. They chose this path, the lawyer replied. You didn't. I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was a strange heaviness settling over me. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't fear. It was something quieter. Something like grief. Grief for the version of me who believed family wouldn't take something that wasn't theirs. The lawyer stood. May I walk you to your car? I nodded and followed him, clutching the folder against my chest. Halfway down the driveway, the front door creaked open behind us. My brother's voice called out. Maddie? What are you doing? I turned slowly. My mother stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She wasn't crying. She wasn't apologizing. She was calculating. Dad appeared behind them. What's that in your hand? Mom asked, stepping closer like she expected me to hand the folder over. I didn't. I held it tighter. It's nothing you need to worry about, I said softly. Dad's voice sharpened. You need to leave the property immediately. We already talked about this. The lawyer stepped forward before I could answer. His tone was calm, firm, and unmoving. Actually, he said, Ms. Pierce. We'll be staying. This involves her legal rights. Their expressions changed instantly. A flash of fear. Annoyance. Then anger. Dad glared at me. What did you do? My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. Nothing, I said. I didn't do anything. But the truth hung between us like a storm. They did. My mother stepped down the driveway slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Madeline, you need to show me what's in that folder. The lawyer shook his head. She doesn't owe you anything. My mother's face darkened. My father clenched his jaw. My brother looked like he wasn't sure whose side he was supposed to be on. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of them. Because the truth was finally on my side. You all need to step back, the lawyer said quietly. This is now a matter for the court. Mom's voice cracked. What are you talking about? The lawyer met her gaze without blinking. Your father left this property to Madeline. And you have been withholding and misusing the deed. My mother's mouth fell open. My father's face went pale. My brother took a step back like he had been slapped. I turned toward the house one last time. The windows reflected the morning light. The porch I rebuilt glowed softly. And for the first time in months, it felt like mine again. But I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Because when a family who thrives on control realizes they're losing it, they don't go quiet. They start fighting. And deep down, I already felt the storm building behind closed doors. All I could do was breathe, and wait for the moment everything finally erupted. When I left my parents' driveway that night, the sky was black and heavy, the kind of darkness that makes everything feel colder than it should be. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the ignition. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but my mind was strangely calm. Too calm. Like the stillness after a bomb goes off, when the brain hasn't yet caught up with what the heart already knows. I drove home on autopilot. The streetlights blurred past like smudged stars, the road stretching out in front of me without a destination, without meaning. I kept replaying every second inside that house. Every word. Every look. Every moment when someone who claimed to love me chose to humiliate me instead. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped both hands around my ribs and squeezed. I sat there again. Still. Silent. Afraid to go upstairs and face the life I had built away from them, because now I could see it clearly, my life was the only thing they had never managed to take from me. But the house. The one I spent years building. That was gone. I finally forced myself out of the car. My legs felt numb, weak, like they didn't know how to hold me anymore. When I reached my front door, I paused. I took a deep breath. I expected to feel relief walking into my own space, my safe place. But instead, I felt hollow. Detached. Like nothing belonged to me anymore. Not even myself. I locked the door behind me and slid down to the floor. For a long time, I didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. I just sat there with my knees pulled up to my chest, staring at the wall like if I focused hard enough, maybe reality would blur out around the edges and fade away. Eventually, my phone buzzed. At first, I didn't look. I didn't care. But then it buzzed again. And again. And again. Finally, I picked it up. 26 missed messages, from my mother. 10 from my father. 4 from my aunt, checking if I was okay, but not actually offering help, the way she always did. I opened nothing. Instead, I tossed the phone onto the couch and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands were shaking too badly to drink. So I set the glass down and leaned on the counter, breathing slowly, trying to keep the world from tilting under my feet. Everything hurt, but nothing was bleeding. That's the cruel thing about emotional wounds, they don't look dangerous until they've already turned into something you can't control. I finally sat down at the kitchen table. My laptop was still open from earlier that morning, before everything fell apart. A blank document glowed on the screen. I didn't remember opening it. But I stared at it anyway. A single sentence typed itself in my mind: they escorted me out of the house I built. The words crushed me, because they were true. I didn't build that house with bricks and wood. I built it with sacrifice. With double shifts and lost weekends. With early mornings and late nights. With dreams I paused and goals I pushed aside. I built a home, not for myself, but for them. For the idea of family I still wanted so desperately to believe in. And they threw me out of it without hesitation. My hands moved before my mind did. I typed everything I felt. Every thought. Every memory. The page filled quickly with words I didn't even know I'd been holding inside. Halfway through, I stopped. Because something felt off. Wrong. The more I replayed the night, the more one moment began to stand out, small at first, but heavier each time I went back to it. When I walked into the house, the living room looked different. Not just rearranged. Not just redecorated. Something had been removed. Something big. I stood up, pushing away from the table so quickly the chair screeched across the tile. I grabbed my keys and purse without thinking. My body moved before my mind caught up. I drove back to their neighborhood, hands clenched tight around the steering wheel. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. I just needed to see something. When I pulled up to the street, I turned off the headlights and parked 2 houses away, near the big sycamore tree. Their lights were still on. That didn't surprise me. Drama always kept my parents awake, they practically fed on it. I stepped out of the car slowly, quietly. The night air was cold against my face. I walked toward the backyard, staying close to the fence line so the security lights wouldn't catch me. Through the glass doors, I could see the living room. Everything looked the same as earlier, same couches, same rug, same curtains. Except for one thing. My framed blueprint, the architectural rendering I had hung on the wall when the house was completed, the one that showed the original plans I'd drawn myself, was gone. Not moved. Gone. The blueprint I paid thousands to commission. The blueprint I had framed for them as a gift. The blueprint they once told me they'd treasure forever. Gone. Something twisted sharply in my gut. I stepped closer, making sure I wasn't imagining it. No frame. No outline where it used to be. No nails. No shadow. They didn't just remove it. They had removed me. Because that blueprint wasn't just art. It was proof. Proof of who designed the house. Who oversaw the renovation. Who paid for every inch of the foundation. And they removed it before escorting me out. My heart pounded harder. Why? My parents weren't sentimental, but they were strategic. Calculated. Everything they did had a purpose. Removing the blueprint meant they were preparing for something. Something big. I took a step back. And right then, their front door opened. My father stepped out onto the porch, phone to his ear, pacing. His voice carried across the yard, low but sharp. No, I don't want her involved. He paused. I told you, we already filed everything. It's too late for her to change it now. What? My chest tightened. He kept pacing. Yes, the transfer is done. The attorney said once it's sealed, she can't contest it. She doesn't even know what she's lost. My breath froze. Transfer. Attorney. Contest. Sealed. My knees nearly buckled as the realization hit me like a physical blow. They hadn't just escorted me out of the house. They hadn't just removed my blueprint. They hadn't just humiliated me. They had been planning this. For weeks. Maybe months. And whatever they filed, whatever they sealed, whatever they thought I didn't know. They thought it was already final. I backed away slowly, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I returned to my car, hands trembling so badly I dropped the keys twice before I managed to unlock the door. I slid into the driver's seat and locked all the doors, chest heaving, tears burning the back of my eyes. A transfer. Filed. Sealed. Without me. Of something I built. Of something that belonged to me. They had stolen it. Not metaphorically. Legally. And if they had filed something. It meant one thing, this wasn't personal. This was business. This was theft. And they thought I would never know. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, startling me. I grabbed it with shaky fingers. A voicemail. From an unknown number. I hesitated, then pressed play. A calm, professional voice filled the car. Miss Torres. This is Attorney James Holloway. I've been trying to reach you regarding an urgent matter about the property at 512 Glenwood Drive. I strongly suggest you call me back immediately. There has been a development you need to be aware of. I stared at the screen. The voicemail was timestamped 20 minutes ago. 20 minutes. Right around the time my father stood on the porch, speaking to someone on the phone. Right around the time he said it was too late. Right around the time my life cracked open. I looked up at the house. My parents didn't know this attorney had called me. Something had gone wrong in their plan. Something had slipped. And the lawyer clearly knew something they didn't want me to know. My breath shook as I whispered to myself, they tried to erase me. But something went wrong. I gripped the steering wheel hard enough for my fingers to ache. Tomorrow, I would call Attorney Holloway. Tomorrow, I will find out what they filed. Tomorrow, I would learn what they stole. But tonight. Tonight, I sat in the dark, staring at the house I built, and whispered a promise to myself, they think it's too late. They think I'm gone. But they have no idea what happens when I stop being the quiet one. And with that, I put the car in drive and pulled away, cold clarity settling into my bones. Part 4 would not be about pain. It would be about proof. And I would let the lawyer say the words that would change everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's voice again. She doesn't even know what she's lost. The words crawled under my skin like ice. By sunrise, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of untouched coffee, staring at my phone, waiting for the clock to hit 8 a.m. The moment the minute hand crossed the line, I dialed Attorney Holloway's number. He answered on the second ring. "Miss Torres?" "Yes," I breathed. "You called about the property, about the house." There was a short pause. Papers shuffled in the background. "I need you to come to my office immediately," he said. "There are documents you must see in person. Anne. I want you to prepare yourself." Prepare myself. My stomach twisted. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. His office was in a brick building downtown. Quiet, expensive, the kind of place where the air conditioning hums softly and the walls feel heavy with secrets. He greeted me with a handshake and tired eyes, like he already knew this wouldn't be simple. "Please sit," he said. He opened a thick folder, my parents' names stamped across the top. I braced myself. He slid the first document toward me. "Your parents filed a transfer of ownership for the Glenwood property." My throat tightened. "To who?" "To themselves," he said softly. "They signed paperwork claiming you gave the property to them voluntarily." My jaw dropped. "I never signed anything." "I know," he said. He pulled out another sheet, placing it carefully in front of me. "Because they forged your signature." The room tilted. Forged. My parents didn't just betray me emotionally. They committed fraud. He pointed at the signature. "I've seen your signature on legal forms you filed with my office last year. This isn't yours. The slant is wrong. The pressure is wrong. The loops don't match." My voice cracked. "And they filed this?" "They did. But," he turned the page. The county clerk flagged the paperwork. "Why?" He exhaled slowly. "Your parents got sloppy. They mislabeled one of the notarization dates. So the clerk delayed processing and attempted to verify your signature with the notary." My pulse was hammered. "And the notary said?" His lips pressed together in a thin line. "The notary never met you. Never saw you. Never verified anything." I closed my eyes. A shaky breath escaped my lungs. "So the transfer isn't valid?" I whispered. "Not only that," he said. "If you file a challenge, the entire attempt becomes evidence of fraud." I stared at him, numb. "What do I do?" His answer came without hesitation. "You fight." He leaned forward, voice low and firm. "You have the right to reclaim full ownership. And once fraud is established, you may have grounds to press charges." Charges. Against my own parents. I swallowed hard. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he said gently but firmly. "Because they already did this to you. And they will do worse if they think they can get away with it." My hands curled into fists in my lap. He pushed another document toward me, a form already half completed. "All you need to do is sign here. I'll file the challenge today. And once the clerk sees the forged signature, the investigation opens automatically." I stared at the line where my name should go. My real name. My real signature. My real ownership. My breath trembled, but I picked up the pen. My fingers steadied. And I signed. When I finished, Attorney Holloway gently closed the folder. "That's all for now," he said. "I'll call you the moment the clerk responds." I stood up, but my legs felt heavy, like I was learning to walk in a new world. A world where the people who raised me were the ones I had to defend myself against. Before leaving, he gave me one last piece of advice. "Miss Torres, don't contact them. Not yet. Let the paperwork speak first." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice anyway. The drive home felt unreal. I turned off the radio. I needed silence. I kept thinking of my father's words on the porch. She doesn't even know what she's lost. But he was wrong. I knew exactly what they tried to take. What they almost succeeded in stealing. My childhood. My trust. My work. My future. Everything I had ever built, alone. When I reached my apartment, my phone was buzzing non-stop. 30 messages from Mom. 15 from Dad. Then, finally, one from an unknown number. I opened it. County clerk, transfer of ownership, disputed. Forgery investigation opened. Parties notified. Notified. Meaning. My parents just found out. My chest tightened. Before I could take another breath, my phone rang. Dad. I didn't answer. It rang again. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, from the house landline. I stared at the screen as if it were burning through me. The ringing stopped. 5 seconds later, a new message appeared. My mother's voice, thin and shaking, Madeline, call us back. Now. This isn't what you think. Please. I set the phone down. Not shaking. Not crying. Just, quiet. Because for the first time, they were afraid. Not me. Them. I walked to the window, the afternoon light cutting across my living room in a sharp golden line. My reflection stared back at me, tired, bruised, but standing. Still standing. Still mine. A new message buzzed. Dad, this time. Short. Cold. Desperate underneath the anger, you made a mistake. I picked up the phone slowly, exhaled, and whispered to myself, no, you did. Then I blocked both numbers. Both. For the first time in my life. And as the sun dipped behind the buildings outside, drowning the room in soft orange light, I whispered the kind of promise my competitor always ends with, the one that tells the audience the storm is only beginning. They escorted me out of the house I built. But the next time they see me, I won't be the one standing at the door. I stepped back from the window and felt something settle inside me, steady and unshakable. They thought pushing me out would end the story, but they never expected me to rise higher than the house they tried to steal. If you want more stories where the quiet one finally fights back, hit subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. Because the next time my parents see me, the balance won't just shift, it will snap in my favor.